Alright guys, we have the practice test right here. Let's go through as much as we could in the next 5 minutes here. How would you translate the graph of y equals negative x squared to produce the graph of y equals negative x squared minus 7? As you could see, it is simply a change of minus 7 on the k. So that means you're going to go down 7. So the k value is down 7. So which one of these says translates down 7 units? Just B. So the correct answer is B. Let's move on. Number 2. Compare the graph of f of x squared to the graph of g of x, which is equal to 1/20th x squared plus 5. So what happens from the a value of 1, which is a regular U-shaped curve, and when you get it closer to 0, this is a vertical stretch or compression. Well, it's definitely less than 1. 1/20th is hardly anything. If you had 1/20th of a tank of gas, you're about to run out of gas. So 1/20th is really small, which is it's a totally wide parabola, right? So that causes it to be wider than the original parent graph. And then the plus 5 means it gets translated up. So D is wider and translated up. Let's move on to the next one over here. We have graph f of x equals x squared, the graph of f of x equals x squared, and we want to describe the transformations to get to h of x. Well, this one obviously has a movement h value of -3, so that means it's going 3 to the left, and the k value, take it for what it is, 7 down. And there's your answer. Let's move on to number 4. How do you go from the parent graph to this new one? Well, let's think about the negative sign that's in front. On the parent graph, there is no negative sign, so that first transformation has to describe the negative sign appearing, and that would be a reflection over the x-axis. And then we still need to describe, so let me put a comma there, we still need to describe what happens next. On the inside, you're multiplying 1/4 times x. So whenever you're dealing with multiplication, it's going to be either a vertical stretch or a compression. Now, we're multiplying the x only. It's inside parentheses. It's not the entire function. So you're multiplying x. That tells you that it's going to be horizontal, and it's going to be a horizontal stretch or compression. You need to look at the 1/4, and that is when you think about the factor, you have to think reciprocal because it's inside the parentheses. So in reality, you're going to be thinking of the factor of 4, not 1/4. But you take the reciprocal of 1/4 and it's 4, and that tells you that it's a horizontal stretch of 4. And that's pretty much it for number 4. Once again, the inside value, whatever you see here, you have to think reciprocal. That'll give you the actual factor that you're doing. So 1/4 is really 4. And since 4 is greater than 1, that's a stretch, horizontal stretch of 4. Okay, let's move on down here. For these next questions, we need to determine many things. Some of them are very easy, like does it open up or down? So it's really easy. Here we go. This first one, does it open up or down? Well, that's up. Why is it up? Because the a value is positive. How about number 6? Does it open up or down? That one's down, because the a value is negative. Okay, moving on to B. B asks you to find the x-axis of symmetry. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say x-axis, but find the axis of symmetry. And to find the axis of symmetry, we use the formula x equals -b over 2a. And there's the x equals -b over 2a. I'm just going to put it over here on the side so we could see that later. But let's actually work it out. If you go -b over 2 times a, negative parentheses over 2 times parentheses, the b value happens to be -2, so you plug the -2 in there. And on the bottom, you have 2 times a, and a is 0.5, or we could also say it's 1/2. Apologize for that messiness right there. Anyways, we have a +2 on top, because a negative and a negative is a positive. And on the bottom, you have 2 times half, that becomes 1. So what is the answer? It's 2, all right? So let me erase the mess I made. And the answer is 2. And this is for the axis of symmetry. So how are we going to write this? We're going to write it as x equals 2. Okay? Where did that come from? It came from the formula, x equals negative b over 2a. That is our x value of our vertex, right? Remember, the axis of symmetry is the same thing as the x value of our vertex. So since I already know that the x value of the vertex is 2, and I need the y value of the vertex, remember a vertex, and that's what they're asking on part C, find the vertex. A vertex is a coordinate, an x and y value. I already know that my x value is 2. All I need to do is find my y value. And the way to do that would be to plug it in. So here is my equation, but I put parentheses instead of x. That way I could plug in the value of 2 right in there and right in there. And what we need to end up doing is working this out. So let's work it out. If we think about 2 squared, what is 2 squared? That's 4. And if we go 4 times 0.5, that's really half of 4. And what is half of 4? That's simply 2. Okay? And then if we go over here and think about what 2 times negative 2 is, or negative 2 times 2, that's going to give you a negative 4. I'm going to write it down here so I could show my work. Minus 4. And last but not least, we have that minus 6 at the end. Let me write that down, minus 6. So what is 2 minus 4 minus 6? 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8. So our y value is negative 8. That's how we get that answer there. Let's move on to D. Let's find the y-intercept. Before you find, or how do you find the y-intercept? You need to set x equal to 0 and solve. And that becomes a pretty easy problem because this is a standard form equation, which means there's an x here and an x there, and if you plug in a 0 there and 0 there, everything's going to eliminate except the minus 6. So once again, to get the y-intercept, you need to set x equal to 0 and solve. And there we have the notes right there for the y-intercept, set x equal to 0 and solve. I could show my work, but it's really easy. If you plug in 0 here, 0 squared is 0, times anything is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 0 minus 0 is 0, and 0 minus 6, your final answer will be negative 6. So what is the y-intercept? You could write y equals negative 6. That's pretty easy to do because anytime you have a standard form equation, your y-intercept ends up being the c value at the very end. Again, only if it's standard form. So moving on to number 7, or actually number 6, we need to go back to finish that one, do part B, C, and D. Part B is to find the axis of symmetry. And once again, you're going to find the axis of symmetry using x equals negative b over 2a. You could either start with the axis of symmetry over here, or you could start with the x value of your vertex, which you're going to use the same thing, x equals negative b over 2a. Anyways, when we use x equals negative b over 2a, we end up with negative parentheses over 2 times parentheses, and let's plug in those values, 10 and negative 1, and you're going to end up with negative 10 over negative 2, and negative 10 over negative 2 is positive 5, so you would say x equals positive 5. That's your axis of symmetry. To find your vertex, you already know that your x value is 5, and you need your y value, so you would plug it in and work it all out. I want to show my work down here. We're going to plug in our 5 right here and right here. Let me do that. We have a 5 right there and a 5 over here. So let's do this work kind of in our heads. 5 squared is 25, but that's a negative 25. 10 times 5 is 50. So you have a negative 25 plus 50. That's going to be positive 25. So 25 is your answer there, and that's your coordinate 525. Let's go to option D, the last part of this. Find the y-intercept. You're going to set x equal to 0 and solve. That's really easy to do if it's a standard form equation. You're going to put 0 in for x, 0 in for x, 0 squared is 0, negative 0 plus 10 times 0 is 0, negative 0 plus positive 0, it's all 0. So in this case, your y-intercept will be at the y value of 0. I hope this helps. We're going to continue on with another video right now.